Verthal stood on the walls of the ancient temple and watched the sky burn. The Varathian fleet had arrived 3 days ago, and now their ships covered the heavens like a black blanket. Thousands of vessels hung above the sacred world of Ashar 7, waiting to destroy everything his people had built over 10,000 years. He was a commander of the Kathrani Legion. He had fought in 12 campaigns across the galaxy. He had never known fear until now. The Varathian were not like other enemies. They were machines given terrible purpose. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They consumed world after world, stripping planets of resources and life. The Galactic Council had sent warnings, but no help. Everyone was too afraid. Verthal looked at his soldiers. They were proud warriors with scales of deep blue and eyes that glowed like distant stars. They carried weapons passed down through generations. They believed in the old gods, the first beings who had shaped the galaxy at the beginning of time. But faith would not stop the Varathian. "Commander," said one of his officers, a young female named Kiraset, "we have received word. Reinforcements are coming." Verthal felt a small spark of hope. "The council has finally acted?" "No, Commander. The ships are human." The hope died in his chest. Humans. He had heard stories about them. They were a young species from a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. Their bodies were soft and weak. They lived short lives, rarely more than a century. They were considered primitive by most advanced species. "How many ships?" Verthal asked. "One ship, Commander, carrying 400 soldiers." Verthal almost laughed. 400 soldiers against millions of Varathian war machines. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both. The human ship arrived the next morning. It was called the USS Relentless, and it was smaller than Verthal had expected. It landed in the courtyard of the temple, and Verthal went to meet the human commander. The door of the ship opened, and a man walked out. He was average height, with brown skin and dark hair cut short. He wore simple armor and carried no visible weapons. His face was calm, and he smiled easily as he approached. "Commander Verthal?" The man said. "I am Nathan Cole. We came as fast as we could." Verthal studied the human. Nathan Cole looked ordinary. There was nothing special about him. No impressive size, no visible strength, no aura of power. He looked like someone who should be farming or teaching children, not fighting wars. "You brought 400 soldiers," Verthal said. "The Varathian have millions of combat drones." Nathan nodded. "Yes, we know." "Then why are you here?" "You cannot change the outcome. You have come to die." Nathan's smile did not fade. It changed slightly, becoming something harder to read. "We didn't come here to help you survive, Commander. We came here to make sure the Varathian never threaten anyone again." Verthal did not know what to say. The human spoke with such calm certainty, as if he truly believed his small force could make a difference. It was madness. Over the next 2 days, more humans arrived from the ship. Verthal watched them set up positions around the temple. They worked quickly and efficiently, but they did not act like soldiers preparing for their final battle. They laughed. They shared food and told stories. They played games and made jokes. One group sang songs while they built defensive walls. Another group argued loudly about something called football while loading weapons. Verthal found it disturbing. His own soldiers were praying and saying goodbye to their families through communication devices. They were preparing their souls for death. But the humans acted like they were on a holiday trip. He approached Nathan Cole one evening as the sun set behind the mountains. The human commander was sitting alone, looking at a small photograph. "What is that?" Verthal asked. Nathan showed him the picture. It showed 2 small humans, a boy and a girl, standing in front of a blue house. "My niece and nephew," Nathan said. Emma and Lucas. They are 7 and 5 years old. They are in your homeworld? Yes. They don't know I'm here. Their mother, my sister, told them I'm on a work trip. Nathan looked at the photograph for a long moment. I promised Emma I would bring her a rock from another planet. She collects rocks. Verthel felt confused. Why do you tell me this? Because you asked me why we came here. Nathan put the photograph away. We came because somewhere out there, on every world, the Varathine will attack next. There are children like Emma and Lucas. Children who collect rocks and dream about stars. Children who've done nothing wrong. But you cannot save them all. You cannot stop the Varathine with 400 soldiers. Nathan looked up at the sky, at the dark shapes of enemy ships. Maybe not. But we can try. And maybe trying is enough. Maybe it matters that someone stood up. Maybe it matters that someone said no. Verthel had lived for 300 years. He had studied philosophy and warfare and history. He had learned from the greatest minds of his people. But he had never heard anyone speak like this. You are strange creatures, he said. We are human, Nathan replied. We come from a world where everything wants to kill us. Our planet has poison animals, giant storms, extreme heat and cold, diseases that evolve faster than we can cure them. We should have died 1,000 times. But we are still here. Do you know why? Verthel shook his head. Because we are too stubborn to quit. Because we don't know when we are beaten. Because we believe tomorrow can be better than today. And we will fight for that belief until our last breath. The next morning, the Varathine sent a message to the planet. It was simple. Surrender or die. The Kethrani Council gathered to discuss terms. Many wanted to accept, hoping the machines would show mercy. Before they could vote, Nathan Cole broadcast a response on all channels. His voice was calm and clear. This is Commander Nathan Cole of Earth. The people of Ashara 7 are under our protection. If you advance, we will end you. The Varathine did not respond with words. They responded with fire. The invasion began. Verthel watched Nathan Cole as the first explosions shook the temple walls. The human was smiling, not with confidence or arrogance. It was a different kind of smile, patient, dangerous, stopped like a predator that had been waiting for its prey to come closer. The first wave of Varathine drones hit the eastern wall at dawn. They came in a silver flood, thousands of metal bodies climbing over each other, firing weapons that melted stone and flesh alike. The Kethrani defenders fought with courage, but they were pushed back within the first hour. Verthel was at the command center when he heard the humans had moved to the eastern wall without orders. He ran to see what was happening. What he saw changed everything he believed about war. The humans were not fighting like soldiers. They were fighting like wild animals. They moved in small groups, fast and unpredictable, hitting the Varathine from angles the machines did not expect. They used the terrain, the shadows, the smoke from explosions. They appeared, killed, and vanished before the drones could respond. A human female was leading one group. Verthel later learned her name was Lara Bennett. She was small, with red hair tied back and pale skin covered in dust and blood. She shouted orders with a cheerful voice, almost singing, as she directed her soldiers. Marcus, left side! 3 drones behind the pillar. Samantha, we have wounded at 6 o'clock. Everyone else, push forward on my mark. She spoke about killing as casually as someone might discuss preparing a meal. Verthel watched a large human male, Marcus Webb, charge toward a Varathine combat tank. The tank was 3 times his size, armored with materials that could stop most weapons. Marcus was carrying explosives strapped to a harness. He will die, Verthel said. Nathan Cole appeared beside him. Watch. Marcus ran straight at the tank. The tank fired at him, but he moved at the last moment, sliding under the blast. He reached the tank, climbed its side, and shoved the explosives into a gap in its armor. Then he jumped away. The explosion was massive. The tank broke apart in fire and metal. Varthol was certain Marcus was dead. Then the human walked out of the smoke. His armor was burned. His face was bleeding. And he was laughing. "Is that the best you have?" Marcus shouted at the remaining drones. "My grandmother hits harder than that." Varthol turned to Nathan. "How is this possible? Your bodies are weak. Your armor is thin. You should all be dead." "We probably should be," Nathan agreed. "But here is something you need to understand about humans. We have been at war since the day we climbed down from trees. We have fought ourselves for 100,000 years. We have studied every way to kill and every way to survive killing. War is in our blood. It is our oldest teacher." The battle continued for hours. The Varathian kept sending drones, and the humans kept destroying them. But Varthol noticed something else, something that confused him even more. A human medic named Samantha. Blake ran into active fire to reach a wounded Kethrani soldier. She was shot twice while dragging him to safety. She did not stop. She patched his wounds, gave him medicine, and went back into the fight. When Varthol asked her why she risked her life for a stranger of a different species, she looked at him with tired eyes and said, "Because he needed help. What other reason do I need?" That night, the fighting paused. The Varathian were regrouping for a larger assault. The humans in Kethrani gathered in the temple to rest and treat their wounded. Varthol found Lara Bennett studying maps on a small device. She was humming a song. "You were impressive today," he told her. "Thank you. You were not bad yourself." She smiled. "For someone with no military training on a death world." "Death world? That is what we call Earth. Our planet is considered one of the most dangerous worlds in the known galaxy. High gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere, diseases that mutate constantly. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you. We evolved in a constant state of war against our own environment." Varthol thought about this. His own homeworld was gentle. Warm climate, abundant food, no dangerous predators. His people had evolved in peace and comfort. "That is why you are so different," he said. "You were forged in hardship." "Yes, but that is not why we fight." Lavra put down her device and looked at him directly. "We could use our abilities for conquest. We could take what we want by force. Many species expect us to become conquerors. But we choose differently. Why? Because we know what suffering feels like. We know what it means to lose family, to watch homes burn, to feel hopeless. We do not wish that on anyone. So we fight to protect, not to destroy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Varthol was silent for a long moment. He had met many warrior species in his life. All of them fought for glory, for resources, for survival. He had never met anyone who fought simply because it was the right thing to do. "There is an old saying on Earth," Lavra continued. "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down their life for their friends. We are not your friends. We are strangers." Lavra smiled sadly. "Not anymore." The next morning, scouts reported the Varathian were deploying something massive. A weapon so large it blocked the horizon. The Kethrani elders recognized it from ancient warnings. A world ender. It was a machine designed for one purpose: to crack planets apart. The Varathian had used it to destroy dozens of worlds. Once it activated, nothing could stop it. Ashara 7 and everyone on it would cease to exist. The Kethrani lost hope. Many fell to their knees in prayer. Others simply sat down and waited for death. Even Varthol felt despair wash over him. His gods had abandoned them. There was nothing left to do. Then Nathan Cole called a meeting. "We have a plan," he said. Varthol stared at him. "What plan can stop a world ender?" A small team infiltrates the machine and destroys it from inside. The Varathine will not expect an internal attack. Their defenses focus outward. That is suicide. The chances of survival are almost zero. Nathan nodded. Yes, we know. He turned to his soldiers. I need volunteers. Every human raised their hand. Every single one of the remaining 200 soldiers. They did not hesitate. They did not ask questions. They simply offered their lives. Verthel felt something break inside him. Something that had been hard for 300 years suddenly crumbled. He raised his own hand. I will go with you. Nathan studied him for a moment, then nodded. Welcome to the team. As they prepared to leave, Verthel asked Nathan one more question. Do you truly believe you can succeed? Nathan checked his weapon and smiled that strange, patient smile. Belief has nothing to do with it. We will succeed because failure means everyone dies. And we do not accept that outcome. We never have. The infiltration team left at midnight. There were 15 of them in total. Nathan Cole led the group, with Laura Bennett handling tactics and Marcus Webb carrying the heavy explosives. Samantha Blake came as their medic. 10 other human soldiers volunteered for the mission, knowing they would probably not return. And Verthel walked with them, the only Kethrani. They moved through the darkness toward the world ender. It was massive beyond imagination. A machine the size of a mountain, hovering above the ground on energy fields that made the air taste like metal. Its surface was covered with weapons sensors and ports that glowed with terrible light. How do we get inside? Verthel whispered. Laura pointed to a maintenance shaft near the base. There, the Varathine use it for repairs. It will be guarded, but not heavily. They don't expect anyone to be foolish enough to try this. Because it is foolish. Yes, Lavra agreed. But foolish is what we do best. They reached the shaft after an hour of careful movement. 4 Varathine guard drones stood at the entrance. Nathan gave a signal, and 4 humans moved silently forward. Within seconds, the drones were destroyed, taken apart by blades and precise shots before they could send an alert. Clean work, Verthel said, impressed despite his fear. We practice a lot, Marcus replied. Earth has many dangerous animals. Humans learn to hunt before we learn to speak. Stealth and precision are in our nature. They entered the shaft and began climbing into the world ender. The interior was a maze of corridors, all metal and cold light. Strange sounds echoed through the walls, mechanical heartbeats that made Verthel's scales itch. Then they saw the first horror, a room filled with tanks of liquid. Inside each tank floated bodies. Not Varathine machines, but organic beings. Dozens of species Verthel recognized. Some were still alive, connected to tubes that drained fluids from their bodies. What is this? Verthel asked, his voice shaking. Samantha examined one of the tanks. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. They harvest biological components. Living creatures provide certain materials machines cannot produce. The Varathine keep them alive as long as possible to maximize output. Verthel felt sick. He had believed the Varathine were simply conquerors. He had not understood they were farmers of suffering. Nathan looked at the tanks for a long moment. When he turned away, something in his eyes had changed. The calm was still there, but beneath it was something cold and absolute. We end this tonight, he said. Not just the world ender, not just this fleet. We end the Varathine forever. They pushed deeper into the machine. The corridors grew narrower and more dangerous. Guard drones patrolled in patterns the humans had memorized from stolen data. They moved carefully, taking down each patrol before it could raise an alarm. But the Varathine were not stupid. Eventually, they noticed something was wrong. Alarms began to sound. Red lights filled the corridors. Doors started to close. and drones began pouring toward them from every direction. "Contact!" Marcus shouted. "Heavy contact front and rear." The fight became chaos. The humans formed a circle, protecting each other while firing in all directions. Verthel fought beside them, using his blade and his strength. He was larger than the humans, stronger in some ways, but they moved faster. They thought faster. They adapted to every change in the battle before he even understood what was happening. A drone broke through their line and went straight for Laura, before Verthel could react. A human soldier named Danny Price threw himself in front of her. The drone's weapon hit him in the chest. He fell, but Laura used that moment to destroy the drone. She knelt beside Danny. He was dying, his blood spreading across the metal floor. "Did I get it?" Danny asked. "You got it," Laura said, holding his hand. "You saved me." Danny smiled. "Good. Tell my sister I love her." Then he was gone. Laura closed his eyes, stood up, and kept fighting. There were no tears. There would be time for grief later. Or there would not. Either way, the mission continued. They reached a junction point where the corridor split 3 ways. Nathan checked his map. The core is straight ahead, but we have heavy resistance coming from all sides. Someone needs to hold this junction while the rest move forward. Marcus stepped forward. "I will do it." "Marcus, no," Samantha said. "You will not survive. I know." Marcus handed his main explosives to Nathan. "But you need these at the core, and you need time to get there." "I can give you that time." Nathan gripped Marcus by the shoulder. "It has been an honor. Don't get emotional on me, Commander." Marcus grinned. "Don't blow this thing up. I will hold them here until you do." They left Marcus at the junction. Verthel looked back once and saw the big human standing alone, facing the corridor where the enemy would come. He was checking his weapons and singing quietly to himself. The sounds of battle started moments later. Heavy gunfire, explosions, Marcus shouting insults at the machines. The noise continued as they ran toward the core, growing distant but never stopping. Then there was one final explosion, massive and echoing. And silence. "He is gone," Verthel said. "Yes," Nathan replied. "And because of him, we are still alive. Keep moving." They reached the core chamber after fighting through 2 more guard stations. They lost 3 more humans along the way. Each death was met with the same response. Grief swallowed. Mission continued. The core was a sphere of energy, pulsing with power that hurt Verthel as. Machines surrounded it, monitoring and controlling the process that would soon destroy an entire planet. "Set the charges," Nathan ordered. The remaining team spread out, placing explosives at key points. Verthel helped where he could, following instructions from Laura. Then an alarm sounded. A different alarm. Deeper and more urgent. "The World Ender is activating," Laura said, reading a display. "We have 10 minutes until it fires." The charges need 15 minutes to arm properly, Samantha reported. Nathan looked at the core, then at his team. "Then someone stays behind to trigger them manually." "I will do it," Laura said immediately. "No," Nathan shook his head. "You have people waiting for you. A family, a future. I do not. Nathan, you have, I have a picture of my niece and nephew and a promise to bring Emma a rock." Nathan pulled the photograph from his pocket and gave it to Laura. "Tell her I tried. Tell her I am sorry I could not keep my promise." Laura took the photograph. Her hands were shaking, but she nodded. Nathan turned to Verthel. "Get them out. All of them. Do not look back." Verthel wanted to argue. He wanted to stay and fight alongside this strange, small creature who had shown him what courage truly meant. But he understood duty. "I will tell your story," Verthel promised. "I will make sure the galaxy knows what you did." Nathan smiled. That same patient, dangerous smile. I don't care about stories. I care about those children in the bunkers. Get them out, and my death will have meaning. The team ran. Samantha led the way, finding paths through the chaos. Lavra guided them with her tactical knowledge. Verthel carried a wounded human on his back. Behind them, the world ender groaned and shook. Ahead of them, escape seemed impossible, but they kept running, because giving up was not something humans knew how to do. Verthel ran through the corridors of the dying machine with the survivors. There were only 5 of them now. Lavra, Samantha, 2 human soldiers named Cooper and West, and himself. The wounded human on his back, a young man named Peters, had stopped breathing minutes ago. Verthel kept carrying him anyway. The world ender was shaking around them. Systems were failing. Emergency lights flickered between red and darkness. The machine knew it was dying and was trying to save itself. This way, Lavra shouted, pointing to a side passage. They turned into the passage and found themselves facing a wall of Varthene drones. 20 of them, blocking the only exit. Cooper and West raised their weapons. Go, Cooper said. We will hold them. There are too many, Verthel protested. Cooper looked at him with tired eyes. There are always too many. That is the point. That is why it matters. West nodded. Tell the commander we did our job. And tell my kids I went down fighting. They charged the drones. Not to win. Not to survive. Just to buy time. Just to give the others a chance to escape. Verthel grabbed Laura and pulled her forward. Samantha followed. Behind them, the sounds of battle were short and brutal. 2 more humans gone. 2 more names to remember. They found the maintenance shaft and climbed down. The world ender was groaning like a wounded animal. Metal screamed as structures collapsed inside. The machine was tearing itself apart. They emerged outside just as the first explosion came. The world ender broke. Not with a single blast, but with a series of eruptions that tore through its body from inside. Nathan Cole had done his work well. The charges destroyed the core, and the core's destruction triggered a chain reaction that spread through every system. The massive machine, the planet killer, the weapon that had ended worlds, fell from the sky like a burning mountain. It hit the ground and broke into 1,000 pieces, each piece exploding as it died. Verthel, Lavra, and Samantha lay in a crater, shielding their faces from the heat and light. When it was over, when the noise finally stopped, they looked up at a sky that was clear for the first time in days. The Varthene fleet above was in chaos. Without the world ender's command systems, their coordination was broken. Ships crashed into each other. Drones lost their programming and fell from the sky. The invasion was collapsing. In the temple behind them, the Kathrani forces saw their chance. They rallied and pushed forward, destroying the confused enemy with weapons that finally found their marks. The remaining human soldiers, less than 50 now, fought alongside them by dawn. It was over. The Varthene were defeated. Their fleet was destroyed. Their world ender was scrap metal spread across the landscape. Ashara 7 was saved. The cost was terrible. Of the 400 humans who had come to fight, only 13 survived. 387 men and women had given their lives for a world that was not theirs. For people they had never met. Verthel stood in the ruins of the battlefield and tried to understand what he had witnessed. His mind kept returning to the same images. Marcus standing alone at the junction, singing as he died. Nathan giving away his photograph, smiling as he accepted his fate. Cooper and West charging impossible odds so others could escape. These were not the actions of primitive creatures. These were not the decisions of a young, weak species. These were the choices of something extraordinary. Lavra Bennett found him standing alone. She was injured, her arm in a sling and bandages covering half her face. But she was alive. She would heal. You are thinking about them, she said. Yes, I cannot stop thinking about them. Lavra nodded. Neither can I never can. Every mission, every battle, every friend who does not come home. They stay with me forever. Verthol turned to face her. Why do you do this? Why do humans fight for strangers? Why do you sacrifice so much for people who cannot repay you? Laura was quiet for a moment. She looked at the sky, at the rising sun painting the clouds in shades of gold and pink. On Earth, she said finally, we have a concept called duty. Not duty to kings or governments or wealth. Duty to each other. To the idea that all thinking beings have value. That pain and suffering matter, no matter who is feeling them. But how can you care so much? You live such short lives. Every sacrifice takes such a large portion of the time you have. Maybe that is exactly why we care so much. Lavra smiled sadly. We know how precious time is. We know how quickly it ends. So we try to make every moment count. We try to leave the universe better than we found it, even if we only have a few decades to do so. Verthol thought about his own people. The Kethrani lived for centuries. They had time to wait, time to plan, time to let problems solve themselves. Perhaps that was why they had been willing to surrender. Perhaps long life made them afraid of losing what they had. Humans were different. They had nothing to lose because they knew they would lose everything eventually. Death was always coming for them. So they chose to face it on their own terms. Nathan Cole saved my world, Verthol said. He saved millions of my people. And he died for us. Yes, he did. I want to understand why. I need to understand. Laura reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph Nathan had given her. She showed it to Verthol. Two small human children, smiling at the camera. Because of them, Laura said. Because somewhere in the galaxy, there are always children who need protecting. Because Nathan believed that if good people do nothing, evil wins. Because he loved those kids, and he knew that if he let the Varathian continue, eventually they would reach Earth. Eventually, they would threaten Emma and Lucas. So he fought for his own people. No, he fought for all people. Because today, it was your world. Tomorrow, it might be another. The day after, it might be Earth. The only way to stop evil is to face it wherever it appears, before it grows too strong. Lavra put the photograph away. That is what humans believe. That is why gods fear us. Verthol frowned. Gods? It is an expression. It means that the most powerful forces in the universe should fear humans. Not because we are strong or advanced or dangerous. They should fear us because we never stop. Because we will sacrifice everything for what we believe is right. Because we would rather die standing than live kneeling. The sun rose higher. The battlefield grew quiet. Somewhere in the distance, Kethrani voices were raised in songs of mourning and gratitude. What will you do now? Verthol asked. Go home. Report to our leaders. Mourn our dead. Lavra looked at the horizon. And then, when the next call comes, when another world needs help, we will answer. Because that is what we do. Even knowing you might die? Especially knowing we might die. Death is not the enemy, Verthol. The enemy is living without purpose. Living without caring. Nathan used to say that a life spent only looking after yourself is a life wasted. Verthol nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. Not fully, not completely, but the shape of it was forming in his mind. Humans were not gods. They were not immortal or all-powerful. They were fragile creatures from a violent world, blessed with short lives and cursed with the knowledge of their own mortality. And yet they chose to spend those precious lives protecting others. That was not weakness. That was strength beyond anything Verthol had ever imagined. 10 years passed. Verthil stood before the great council of the Kathrani, the highest religious and political body of his people. The chamber was ancient, carved from crystal that had been shaped 10,000 years ago. Statues of the first beings lined the walls, the godlike creatures his people had worshipped since the beginning of their history. He was old now, older than he had been when the humans came. But he felt younger than he had in centuries. He had purpose. "The motion is accepted," the High Speaker announced. "Let the record show that the Kathrani people officially recognize humanity as the guardians of the galaxy. From this day forward, their sacrifice on the Shara 7 will be remembered in our temples alongside the deeds of the first beings." Verthil bowed his head in thanks. It had taken years to convince his people to make this declaration. Many had resisted. The Kathrani were proud, and admitting they owed their survival to a species they had once dismissed as primitive was difficult, but Verthil had been patient. He had told the story of the battle thousands of times. He had spoken of Nathan Cole and Marcus Webb and Samantha Blake and all the others who had died so that his world could live. He had described what he had seen, what he had learned, what he now believed, and slowly his people had begun to understand. After the ceremony, Verthil returned to his home. Waiting for him was a message from Earth. He opened it and saw the face of Laura Bennett. She looked older too. Gray hair now mixed with the red, lines around her eyes and mouth. But her smile was the same, warm and genuine. "Hello, old friend," she said in the recording. "I heard about the council's decision. Nathan would have been embarrassed by it. He never wanted recognition. But I think it matters. I think remembering matters." She paused, and something in her expression shifted. "I have news. Emma Cole is graduating from the academy this year. She is going to be a soldier, like her uncle. She told me she wants to protect people the way Nathan protected Ashara 7. Verthil felt something move in his chest. The small girl from the photograph, the one who collected rocks, was now an adult ready to continue her uncle's mission. "She wants to meet you," Lavra continued. "She has questions about Nathan, about what he was like in those final days. I told her you were the best person to answer." Lavra smiled. "Will you come to Earth, Verthil? Will you tell her about the man who saved your world?" Verthil did not hesitate. He recorded his response immediately. "I will come. Tell Emma I will tell her everything I remember. Her uncle was the bravest being I have ever known. She should be proud." 3 months later, Verthil landed on Earth. The planet was exactly as the humans had described. Chaotic, crowded, and alive with energy. Cities covered the land. Ships filled the sky. Everywhere he looked, humans were moving, working, building, creating. They never seemed to rest. Laura met him at the landing port. She was using a cane now, an old injury finally catching up with her. But she walked steadily, and she hugged him when they met. Physical contact was strange for Kathrani, but Verthil had learned to accept human customs. "Welcome to Earth," Lavra said. "It is not as pretty as Ashara 7, but it is home." "It is beautiful," Verthil replied. And he meant it. They traveled to a house in a small town by the sea. There, Verthil met Emma Cole. She was tall for a human, with dark hair like her uncle and kind eyes like her mother. She wore the uniform of a military academy, pressed and perfect. When she saw Verthil, she stood straight and saluted. "Commander Verthil, thank you for coming." "Please, just Verthil. I have not been a commander for many years." Emma relaxed slightly. "Uncle Nathan mentioned you in his letters. He said you were honorable. He said you fought beside them even when you did not have to. Your uncle gave me no choice. He made me want to be better." They sat together on the porch of the house, looking out at the ocean. The water was blue and endless, waves crashing on rocks below. Verthil had never seen an ocean before. He understood now why humans were so full of restless energy. Their planet was always moving, always changing, always challenging them. Emma asked her questions. She wanted to know about the battle, about the mission into the World Ender, about Nathan's final moments. Verthel told her everything. He did not spare the painful parts. She deserved the truth. When he finished, Emma was crying. But she was also smiling. He really did it, she said. He really saved everyone. He did. And he did it willingly. He was not afraid. No. Emma wiped her eyes. Nathan was never afraid. He always said fear was just a feeling, and feelings pass. What matters is what you do despite the fear. Verthel nodded. That is true wisdom. I am going to be like him, Emma said. I am going to protect people. I am going to make sure his sacrifice was not wasted. It was not wasted. Your world lives because of him. But more than that, he showed the galaxy what humans truly are. He showed us that strength is not about power or weapons or size. Strength is about what you are willing to give for others. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a rock. Gray and smooth, shaped like a teardrop. This is from Ashara 7, she said. Lavra brought it back. It was in Nathan's pocket when he died. Verthel stared at the rock. Nathan had promised to bring his niece a rock from another world. And somehow, through death and fire and impossible odds, he had kept that promise. He remembered, Verthel said softly. He always remembered. That was who he was. Before Verthel left Earth, he visited one more place. A memorial on a hill outside the city, overlooking the ocean. 387 names were carved into white stone. The humans who had died at a SHARA-7.VOR single quotes. Thou walked along the wall, reading each name. He remembered faces, voices, moments. He remembered Marcus laughing in the fire. Samantha running into danger to save strangers. Cooper and West charging impossible odds. And at the center of the wall, in letters larger than the rest, was the name Nathan Cole. Verthel placed his hand on the stone. I understand now, he said quietly. I understand why the gods fear you. He thought about the ancient legends of his people. The first beings, the creators, the gods who had shaped the galaxy and then vanished. His people had worshipped them for millennia, believing they were the ultimate power in the universe. But Verthel had learned something on this trip. He had found an old document in the archives of a Kithrani temple. A record from the earliest days of their civilization. A record that spoke of the first beings fleeing the galaxy, running from something they could not understand. The document did not name what had frightened them. But now Verthel knew. The first beings had encountered humans. Or perhaps a species like humans. Creatures who did not fear death. Creatures who fought for love instead of power. Creatures who could not be conquered because they would rather die than surrender. The gods had not vanished. They had run away. Verthel looked at the names on the wall one last time. Then he turned and walked back toward the city, toward the ship that would take him home. He had a story to finish writing. A story about the day he battled beside humans. A story that would be taught in temples for generations to come. And the final line of that story would be simple. The gods fear humans not because humans are powerful, but because humans fight for things the gods have forgotten. Hope, love, and the belief that tomorrow can be better than today.